Right guys, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about FPL. So if you haven't seen, the FPL app just updated and you are now allowed to pick your team for the 2022-23 season. So yeah, I looked through it last night. I chose my picks, early picks obviously, because these can all change depending on transfers. But I just thought it'd be interesting to go through my first picks and see if anyone thinks I can improve on it or whether they think it's an alright team. I've done it so it's bearing the first few kind of games in mind, about the first 3 kind of games. So yeah, and a disclaimer as well, you are actually allowed free transfers within the World Cup time, so you can change your team completely. It's pretty much like an extra wild card, which I thought was quite interesting. That came out literally this morning, that you could do that. So just bearing that in mind, that you can have basically 2 wild cards within the season period. Right, so before we get into the main team that I've kind of picked, I wanted to go through the bench, because a lot of my bench players I don't really use. I pick players that I'm 90% sure are going to play. So for my goalkeeper is the cheapest goalkeeper that I could find, also a Leicester City player, Danny Ward. He's 4 million, and I just wanted a cheap goalkeeper because goalkeepers obviously don't get rotated, ever really. So you just pick a cheap goalkeeper just in case, and just to fill the spot really. Next we have Jack Colback, a midfielder for Nottingham Forest. Again, probably not going to be used. I just thought he might play a bit, and just as an option just in case a last minute injury happens, but he's kind of bench filler again for me. The cheapest midfielder that I could find that I think has a chance of playing, so I just put him in just in case I needed anyone really. Again, another bench filler, a striker this time at 4.5 million, Dwight Gale. He's never going to play for Newcastle United. He'll be 3rd on my bench, and I know he's not going to play, but for me, I don't like bench players and I think they're a waste of money. So I just put everything into my main 11 and just leave that. So I do also have Dwight Gale in this. And my one sub that will probably actually play is Solly March, a midfielder that is extremely talented, and I really like him. The only issue is he's not on my starting team because he's not one of my better players, but I know he usually plays, but he does also have a hard run of games to start off with, starting with Manchester United, Newcastle and West Ham. So he's there mainly for later on, and he only costs 5 million, and he's a player that will probably play as well. Right, so let's get into the main 11 now. So starting at goalkeeper, I've got Jose Sarr. In my opinion, he was the best goalkeeper in the Premier League last season, along with Alisson. I had him all last year. He's great. He's only 5 million compared to Alisson's 5.5. I needed the extra money, and Wolves have 2 easy games to start off with. They've got Leeds and Fulham, so I just thought it's not a bad one to have, and he's quite an easy one to swap out if I really needed to, if they have a really hard game week. But yeah, I thought he was a good pick to start off with. Got a nice first 2 games, and he was amazing last season as well. So I don't usually go for new signings, but for my first defender I've gone for Perisic, the new signing for Tottenham Hotspur. Playing in a wing-back system, I think that he'll get a lot of points. He used to be a winger kind of thing, but I'm assuming Conte will play him at full-back, which is what I really want. Conte will probably almost definitely start him straight away. He is a wing-back, and Conte had him at Inter Milan, so I'm 90% sure he's going to start. The main reason I don't usually get new signings is because Haaland might not start, or these other players might not start straight away. Because he's been a player for Conte before, I've got a feeling that Conte trusts him, and for 5.5 million, I think it's a good shout, because he's going to play, and he's a wing-back, so he'll hopefully get a lot of points for me, to be honest. But a lot of people have him, 49.2% so far have Perisic. So a common pick, but one that I think is good for the price. Next, for my cheap defender, who I still want to play, is Wesley Fofana. The Leicester players I need to get some Leicester players, really, don't I, being a Leicester City fan. 4.5 million for Wesley Fofana, who is one of the best young defenders in the Premier League. I think is a steal. It's literally, I don't know if there's really anyone better than him at this price point. Obviously, Leicester don't have the best few games, but their first 3 games are Brentford, Arsenal and Southampton. So you got one easy, one hard, one easy. So hopefully he gets some points, and I'm 90% sure he's going to start. In my opinion, the best centre-back at Leicester City, so I'm really excited to see him play. And for 4.5 million, a lot of these Leicester defenders You could easily get some good Leicester City players here, but I went for Fofana. Going to start. I thought about Justin, but I didn't know whether he's going to play straight away coming off that injury last season, so went for Fofana. Now, I've only got one Man City player in this whole team, Ruben Diaz. A lot of people are probably going to have Cancelo, but I always have Ruben Diaz because he's always one that stays in the team. He is really good, like in my opinion, and I'm really hoping that he doesn't get subbed out too much this season. He's usually a consistent player, and for only 6 million compared to other like wing backs and stuff, I always like having one centre-back which I know definitely is going to play, and this is my Man City player because I hate getting Man City players because they annoy me how much they change and just don't play the team that you think they're going to play, and then you're caught up on then you're playing your bench players that aren't as good. And if I don't want to sub out my bench players, and if I like having a team that I know is going to play, it's risky having more Man City players, in my opinion. Obviously, they're the best team in the league, but I can't tell if like Jack Grealish is going to play, if Haaland's going to start, or if Mahrez is going to start, even though he was their top goal scorer last season. For my next defender, I've gone for Reece James, a fullback that was amazing last season. I did quite want to go for Chilwell, but coming off that injury, I would prefer to see Reece James. Got Everton, Tottenham, and then Leeds for the first 3 games. Not a bad pick. 6 million, so I quite like 6 million. It's quite a nice price, same as Ruben Diaz, and he is a wing back, obviously, so he'll get up the pitch, hopefully get some goals and assists. So that's what I'm really looking for in Reece James. Now, I actually do realise that I've got 5 defenders. I love defenders in this game, and I usually always have 5 defenders because I think they're a lot more consistent than people give them credit for, getting like points for clean sheets and stuff, which is a lot more viable with these big teams. So for this one, I've gone for Trent, one of my favourite players in the league, 7.5 million, which is insane, the most expensive defender on the game, but you have to go for him. 57.3% have also gone for him. He's got 2 easy games to start off with. Good pick, I think, and he's just very consistent, always getting goals and assists, and that is why he's the most expensive player. Now for my 3 midfielders, I obviously had to go Salah. 13 million though is insane. It takes up so much of your money, it's incredible. As I said, for Trent, 2 easy games to start off with. I think everyone's going to have him. He's kind of a necessity because if everyone has him and you don't, you're losing out on all these points when people captain him. And it's kind of like, it's a bit boring how you needed him last season for every game. No differential captains really, but that's how you got to play the game, unfortunately. Now for my next midfielder, I went for Alan Saint-Maximin, a 6.5 million player. Not a bad player to have in there. Is a midfielder that plays quite high up the pitch, and hopefully he'll get some goals and assists while playing with better players. So that's my thought process here. Got 2 easy games, starting off with the promoted Nottingham Forest, and then Brighton. So I thought he's quite a good player to have in there. He's playing Man City after that, so then hopefully I can sub him out after that for a different player. But 6.5 million and a player that plays quite high up the pitch in midfield, I quite like it. Similarly with Aston Villa, when I looked at their run, they had the best run of games to start off the season anyway. Coutinho I went for because he's playing Bournemouth, Everton, and then Crystal Palace. Should be some easy wins there. And he's only 7 million compared to like players like Saka, who obviously has played better last season and deserves that 8 million price point. I did have Saka in, but it limits me so much. And I wanted to have these 2 strikers up front. The 2 strikers were a necessity for me. They're the ones that I put in first because I wanted them. And then moving on to the strikers, I'll start off with Jamie Vardy. Now Jamie Vardy, only 4.9% of people have got him so far, 9.5 million. And had one of the best goals per game ratio in the Premier League last season. He's got 1 easy, 1 hard, 1 easy game, but whenever he plays, he's amazing. And he's cheap. Well, for a good striker, there's not that many good strikers, right? He's 9.5 million. I really love Jamie Vardy. And when he plays, he scores goals. And that's what I'm hoping he'll do, because every time I have him and no one else really does, he scores loads of goals, and that's why I've picked Jamie Vardy. And it was a necessity for me because of how cheap he is compared to like Harry Kane, who's 2 mil more than him, who obviously gets more assists, but I don't think, if they play the same amount of games, I don't think Harry Kane gets that many more goals than Jamie Vardy does. Speaking of Harry Kane, I also do have Harry Kane at 11.5 million, which is crazy because Son is more expensive than Harry Kane at 12 million. I couldn't afford Son because Son is going to play, right? But you just know that Harry Kane, with Richarlison, with Perisic, with all these new signings that they've made, he's going to bang goals, and that's why I've got him. Only 14.9% of people have got him. I think it's risky having Haaland or Nunes because at those big teams, they don't need to play them straight away. They might bed them in slowly, especially at Man City. He might not start straight away. Even though he is a £100 million player, he might not start straight away. So, yeah, that is my team so far. I literally made it last night, made a few edits to it, and we'll see how it goes. I'm quite happy with how it's come out so far. As I say, I might want to improve one of the bench players and get a replacement for Ruben Diaz at like 5.5 million. I just don't like Man City players in this game because of how much they change. It's a bit frustrating for me, and I like having a set team that I know is going to play. So anyway guys, if you have watched this video, I really appreciate you, and thank you for watching. If you could like and subscribe, it'd make my day. Thank you for watching.